All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Codementor Ruby on Rails office hours. Today, we're very excited to have Nick Sutterer with us today. Nick is a Rails contributor, gem author, and frequent conference speaker. Today, Nick is going to talk about Trailblazer, a new architecture for Rails. Nick, let's get started.
Hello, everyone. As you might already know, I'm a frequent conference speaker, Rails contributor, and what was the third one?
You're a gem author.
Gem author. And I've been working on a book about all my gems that I worked on the last, let's almost say, 10 years. So this book and the hello, Adrian.
Hey, how's it going?
Really good. Yourself?
Doing pretty good. Hope you guys don't mind if I eat while we do this.
It's all right. I just started talking about what Trailblazer is. Basically, I've been working on different abstraction layers for Rails, like view abstraction, form objects, parsing and processing layer, a new rendering layer for APIs. It's all different gems like cells and raw and representable and reform. And I had this idea of putting that all together in a kind of framework, but a framework on top of Rails, because I don't want to. I actually like Rails. I just have problems with the architectural guidance, because there is no architectural guidance in Rails. And so I decided that I want to stay with Rails because there's a great ecosystem, like thousands of gems that might be of any help. Or the community is great. Like there's thousands and 10,000s of people you can ask if you have a problem, and people who can help. And you also get a lot of jobs with Rails. Like you can work everywhere in the world, and it's like, do you do Rails? Yes, come on. So I actually liked Rails, but I didn't like I still don't like the architectural concepts in Rails, and that's why I came up with all these gems in the last 10 years. And I thought it's time to write a framework to bring that beautiful concept into everyone's office. And this is basically Trailblazer. So Trailblazer is like a mashup of my gems, and it also introduced some new concepts like operation, like how to model your domain layer. So we can go into some details here during this office hour. But actually, I'm really interested in your guys' experiences on with Rails. So what kind of problems did you encounter while you worked on, or while you, I think you're still working on Rails projects? I would like to hear the typical problems you ran into, because what I've been doing the last 10 years is I got hired from different companies to refactor their messed up Rails applications, and I've been running into the same problems over and over again, and the same problems were usually huge models. So basically, a PHP script put into a model. But hey, awesome, because it's a Ruby model now. It's not a PHP script anymore, so it must be good. So that was the major problem, that all the domain, presentation, rendering, processing, validation, all that code in the model. And what I also saw a lot was horrible view layers, like helpers and partials, but there wasn't any encapsulation, so every partial had access to every variable, and this ended up in huge messy view layers. So maybe you guys got something to add here? Adrian, how's your pizza?
Well, I haven't done anything special on the view side, but what we have found in our shop is that it helps us a lot to have things like service objects to deal, let's say, with forms, or for example, if you have a contract, to have a contract creator that will take all the different pieces that are coming into it, and then instead of just do contract create, basically have a service object that will make sure that you have all the information that you need to create that contract, and then have that object do the one that does contract create with all the right information, instead of polluting creator with all the things that need to be there to make sure that that contract can be created. That's something that has helped us, what is the saying, that if you put all the crap together, it smells really bad, but if you split it into a bunch of places, it doesn't smell that bad. And,
oh, well, that's a good quote. I need that for my book. That's cool, because that sounds a little bit similar to the way I do operations, like high-level domain modeling in Trailblazer. So we basically, so you model every like I did this beautiful diagram, like show, new, edit, create, what's it, update, delete, and all that stuff. So you model this, instead of pushing all of that functionality into one monolithic model. You have different operation classes for every step, and every operation has a contract, the same naming as you guys do. So every operation has a contract, and the contract is a reform object basically, but it doesn't matter at the moment. So every operation has the same entry point. Every operation uses a contract to validate incoming data, and the operation can also present the validation, of course, to the view or whatever, to the API. And after validation has happened, your actual domain logic is run, and that's the actual code in an operation. That's an example on the Trailblazer page, but maybe you just.
Can you take us a little bit through a code example how that will work? Because I took a cursory look at that, but I didn't dive into this example repo or anything like that.
Yeah, no. The thing is, oh, there's Tom. Hello. The problem is, or it's actually not a problem. It's my intention. I didn't publish any documentation. I didn't publish any readmes, any blog posts, because I want to save this time to work on the actual book. So this office hour is the first time we talk about Trailblazer in public. So if you go to I don't know, can I screen share with Google Hangout?
Yeah.
How do I do that?
On the left-hand side, there's a green screen.
It's a green arrow thing.
Ah, here we go. Is it gonna work and everyone can see my inappropriate stuff I do in the background? Or so cool. Can you guys see that?
Yep. It's prettier than you, I must say. Just kidding.
Is it what?
It's prettier than you, I must say. Just kidding.
This is the only code. What is that?
It's little, but I can see it, sort of.
Wait, maybe I can increase the font size. I mean, you can also browse to that.
It's just a ratio. You have to use the whole screen to see it bigger.
Doesn't help.
No, I'm saying to not you, but the other guys. I'm using the whole screen and I can see it bigger.
So how do I disable the the full screen mode in Firefox? Ah, here we go. I can increase the font size.
That's good. I can read that.
Also, I can just send you the link on the Hangout. So that's repo. Cesar, are you here actually? I can't hear him. So, am I still?
Hello.
Hello.
How are you? I'm here.
Really good yourself. I just wanted to say hello because you're the only one I know.
Of course.
Okay, I'll go back to the Trailblazer thing. How do I zoom in? Here we go. Is that better, readable?
Yeah, that's great.
It is.
Okay, cool. So so beside all the features like view components and form objects and all that stuff, the operation is kind of the pivotal element in Trailblazer. So as I said with my beautiful diagram earlier, every high-level domain action is modeled in a operation. So when I say high-level operation or high-level domain operation, I mean steps like update a comment or delete a user, or it could even be something like the granularity level is unlimited. So an operation covers your entire public domain. So everything a user can do via the user interface or via the API. So update a comment, give me a list of all the recent comments, update the author in comment 17 or whatever. That's all high-level domain. I call it high-level domain. I don't know if it's the appropriate term. So this is all operations you do via your user interface. Okay, so this was an important moment for me to realize that I don't want to have I don't want to work on my actual models, on my Rails and active record models, to trigger one of those high-level domain actions. I want to have an operation or like a class to encapsulate this entire step, because at the moment when you let's say you click on a delete button, what happens is you go to the controller. The controller knows a little bit about this domain action because it does authentication, and it does if it's valid, then do this. If it's not valid, then do that. And then the controller delegates, and what's you delegate to you go and delegate to a service object, but a lot of people don't know about this, how to use a service object, and then they delegate to the model, and then they have 10 lines of code in the controller delegating to different models, and then the model delegates to the database, and then the database says, hey, this is all right, or hey, this is invalid, and then the model goes back into the controller, hey, this is invalid. So we have kind of 3 layers of application code encapsulating one single domain action. Like, I just want to update a comment. And this is exactly what an operation encapsulates. So it's a bit similar to Adrian's service object, but it's kind of I just put in all the best practices I've encountered over the last years into an operation. An operation is extremely, really simple. So the API, let's quickly walk through that screen I'm sharing. You can have as many operations as you want, and as opposed to Rails, the naming schema in Trailblazer is a bit different. So you have your domain concept, I call it. So this is the comment, and then you have a namespace for the actual implementation. So I use operation, but you can you call that whatever you want, or you can just skip that namespace. And then I have the actual action that happens. So in this example, this is a create operation. Yeah?
Okay.
And so every operation, so maybe I'll show you how to use an operation first. So in order to use this operation, as for example in a controller, all I can do is using the run method. So all I have is a class method run. I can't do anything else in this operation. And this is per design. This is to make it obvious that this is an atomic step in your domain. And I pass in the params. I can also pass in JSON or whatever, so it depends on how the operation is implemented. And what I really love about the operation run method is that it accepts a block. And this block is only called when the when the operation is valid, whatever that means. We can back to this in a second. Okay, so this block is yielded when it's valid, and if you use return in the block, you're done. This controller action will finish, and the request is done. If it's not valid, the code will carry on, run into the render block that is responsible for handling the invalid operation state. And this is a pretty handy way of using the operation, because you don't need ifs and else. You just use the block for valid state and a return, and this will jump out of the action or wherever you call it. So there's other ways to call an operation, but this is the kind of we call it the flow usage, and this covers 99% of the cases when you want to trigger domain logic in a controller. So remember, we have this operation create, we call run, and pass in the parameters. That's all we need to know at the moment. And what happens when you call run is that a reform object internally is instantiated. We call it contract, and when I say we, I mean I. So a contract is instantiated because every operation has a contract. I mean, per definition. You don't have to have a contract for every operation, but it's kind of the convention. And you can inherit contracts, and you can share contracts and all this stuff. So this is just a really straightforward example. And I don't know if you guys know Reform, but Reform is a pretty cool gem to validate data without touching the model. So I can define fields, and I can define validations for the fields, and I can use active models validations and unique validations and all that stuff that's usually sitting in the model. Okay, but it's very explicit. So I have to define the field or the fields. There can be 500 fields if you need that. They can be nested, so you can have nested forms or contracts. And you can have nested validations and all that stuff. So you can also add methods to that contract. So basically, this part of the operation covers the entire process of validation. And so when I call create.run in the controller, it will jump into the process instant method. That's the only method you have to implement in an operation. And in that method, you create whatever model or models you need for that domain action step. So I want to create a comment. So what I do is I create a new comment, and then you call the built-in method validate, pass in the parameters and the model you created, and this step will instantiate this form object, validate and all that stuff, and then call the block if the form is valid. So this is where your application logic for this domain, for this particular step happens. And this is it's a bit of a like you need to wrap your head around, but it's extremely clean and extremely simple and useful. So I use this operation stuff. I mean, what I'd have to say is you don't. So I just use I just save the model in this block, but you can call other operations. You can have a finite range level of domain logic and all that stuff. So it's up to you what happens in the what happens when the form or the operation is valid. But I use this in my current project, I use this operation setup everywhere, and it is fantastic because it has a lot of other benefits I didn't even talk about. But just the fact that I have a place to put validations and domain logic, because validations and domain logic, that's one thing. That shouldn't be separated. Because I always want to validate and run domain logic, and then maybe validate a little bit more and run more domain logic and all that stuff. So having a place to put all this domain logic and validation is a fantastic thing to have. And I have the feeling that people like Adrian have an extremely similar setup, and this is totally okay because I'm not reinventing something. Bullshit. I'm not inventing something brand new and amazing, but just having this convention of putting domain logic into operations is a big step forward, because now people will talk about, people using Trailblazer will talk about operations. They will say like, hey, in my operation X, Y, Z, I can't use this and that, instead of talking about, hey, in my model somewhere in the depths of accept nested attributes, I have a problem. And so I'll stop the screen share. How do I stop the screen share?
Same place.
Thanks for teaching me Google+. So by introducing this concept of an operation, my personal architecture made a big step forward, because I have a standard now for implementing basically everything. Because I always think in operations now. I think like, okay, this is create, this is update, this is crop an image, this is send out a notification, and it's all in operations. And the cool thing about operations is, you can also render the contract from the operation, so you can use the operation for rendering and for processing the incoming data. And B, you can use operations in tests as factories. So when I write tests, I don't do factory girl whatever, because this is guaranteed to have a different application state than when you use your actual API. I just use my API. I use operation comment. I use comment create, blah blah blah, and this creates a comment, and this creates a comment exactly the same way as it happens in a controller. And then I can upload images, I can crop images in my tests by using my API, because my API is modeled in operations. And this is fantastic, because I always have exact the same state that I will have in production. Because what I had as a problem with Factory Girl is that, or with factories in general, I don't say Factory Girl is bad, Factory Girl is great, but I always had the problem that I had to, I don't know, like, I had to do a lot of tweaking to get to provoke a particular bug or something, or to establish the exact same environment that I have in production, because I'm working on the model and not on the domain. So I had to kind of copy the domain into my tests, and now I just use the operation, set up my test environment. I can use 20 operations if I need a really complex setup, and then actually test the real problem. And this is fantastic. I mean, I don't know if you guys are fans of service objects or of abstracting your domain logic away from the model into separate classes, but I really love it. And actually, I would love to have some conversation about how you guys model your domain logic, because this was me talking for 29 minutes now. So hello, wake up.
Sorry, trying to do too many things at one time.
Pizza. What else?
Hey Nick, I'm Jerry.
Hey Jerry, how are you going?
I'm good. I have questions that so you want people don't to put validations in model, but put in reform. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Because in model, that's many places I can use, and it's by default It's a bit like I set validation in SQL, but if I abstract to reform, and maybe sometimes I want to just simple its that model, and it doesn't work. So I need to write twice. I put the validation in model, and I put the validation in reform.
Yep. That's dangerous, but so I know what you mean. So you're talking about sometimes you have a really simple model.
Yes.
And you want to have a really simple validation, like let's say the email has to be an email, nothing else, right?
True.
And so I'm personally, I don't have in my Trailblazer like hardcore Trailblazer project, I don't have anything in the models except for association, and that's it. Yeah. So even if I have a really simple model, I put the validation into a form, and this form into an operation, because I only want to work on operations. This is kind of hardcore Trailblazer. I mean, because the thing is, you think that your model is very simple, and that's why you put the validation into the simple model. But then 2 weeks later, you need another validation, and then 2 weeks later, you need another validation, and then your model grows and grows, and you're like, oh shit, why didn't I put this in an operation in the first place? So that's that's
Okay.
no, that's. But what you can do is you can also, that's a new feature in Reform 1.1. You can inherit validations or copy validations from a model into the form, so you don't have to have redundancy. That's a pretty nice thing for a transition. Like if you don't want to, I mean, I totally understand that if you have an existing project, you don't want to go delete everything in every model and put it in operations and like, yeah, Trailblazer 2.0. So what you can do is for a transition is to copy, or to use that copy mechanism, where you basically say, take all the validations from user and put them in the user form, or copy them. So you have them on both layers.
Okay. Another question you demo in the API, so we can see you wrote a comment operation create. But if I want a comment operation for create and update and maybe delete, so I need to separate to different class. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. But you can use inheritance. So if you use let's say you have the same validations and form for create and for update, you can just inherit a create, or you inherit the create operation from the update operation. No code added, and it will inherit the contract and the goal. So you don't have anything you need to override.
Okay, I got it.
So yeah, because I understand that it might sound like crazy because you need a class for every step.
Yeah.
But if you use inheritance, and you can also have forms in model and in modules, and can share the modules and all this stuff. So I did a lot of work on keeping that stuff really, really, really dry. And also there's I'm working on something that automatically creates you this kind of classes. So if you really have really simple objects, you can just use a runtime generator for this class. So you don't have to write 8 different operations for a model that just has an email field, like your example. You can use a runtime generator.
Okay, cool.
So what are your plans on having the book ready to take a look at?
Next question.
Okay.
No, bullshit. I'm actually... yeah?
No, I was just going to say, that's a lazy answer, but tell me.
The real answer is I was planning to release the book, or maybe a
preview?
Like almost, almost preview this year, because basically what's happening at the moment is, I mean, all the gems are already there, yeah. So the gems of Trailblazer, they have been there for like 8 years. Well, Excel has been around for like 8 or 9 years, and all that stuff. So what I'm working on at the moment is this example application called Gem, which is a really small application, but it shows all the different like aspects and concepts of Trailblazer in a really simple way. And I don't want to release something half baked, you know, because I don't know, I've seen several publications. They didn't really satisfy me in my hunger for object orientation. So I wanna finish this example app and maybe even blog about this application beforehand while I'm writing on the actual book. But the book, I really want to publish it when it's like safe to publish. I mean, it's on LeanPub, so you can read it. You can read it while I write it, but the real book, it's going to take a couple of months, because yeah, I really want it to be especially some parts of the API are still changing, especially on the operation side. So I want this to be 100% bulletproof, and then publish the book.
It sounds interesting. To me, honestly, the thing that interests me most about the book is not how you wrote that controller and how you wrote that, because I can look at the gem and figure that out. To me, the most interesting thing is why you're doing it that way. And what's the philosophy, not only the philosophy behind it, but how you put it together and what was your thought process of putting it together. And that's what I'm most interested in the book. That's what I saw the gem and I took a quick look, but without understanding the why, it's hard for me to understand why you're doing it, that way. Does that make any sense?
Okay. Yeah, totally. That's a good inspirational point, because I'm already trying to be very to keep the tech level of the book, because you have the example app, as you say, like you can look at the app, and once you understand the concepts, it's quite easy to walk through the app. So I was already I have a lot of talking about stuff that I experiences, and that led me to this or to that decision. But if you say you want to hear even more about it, I could put in even more about this, because this stuff is that stuff I can write today. I don't, because that doesn't change anymore. Like, I had this problem with helpers, I had this problem with validations, I had this problem with I don't know, controller code, and this is I love writing about stuff like that, because it also helps me to reflect why I did a certain gem or something like that. So that's a good point. I could
I mean, to me the things that are more interesting is, I have this problem and these are my 3 alternatives, and I'm choosing this one and I'm going to do it this way because this is what I think fulfills this objective of this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The thing is, I had this I was thinking about maybe it should be 2 publications, because on the one hand I would love to push that stuff out and just talk about the concepts without too much explanation, like this line number 10 is because of this, and line number 11 blah blah blah. And so exactly as you say, I would love to just more like in a blog post style way, where you just cover the concepts and a little bit of tech, but you push out the idea and the why and the how did I get there. But if I do that, then people will be like, yeah, but this book is shit because he doesn't explain anything about the implementation details, because I didn't understand why I don't know why the validation is invalidate and not in run validate or whatever, and then so people might have different expectation levels. I personally totally second your idea of having this more more like a discussion of problems instead of running through every line of code because it's really tedious. And I'm also still working out the details if I want to have my code examples, like if I want to present the finished, ready for production code, and then discuss this quickly. Oops. Or if I want to have like an like a stepwise. Now we write a form. Now we extend the form. Now we use the form here. Then we figure out this is wrong, so we extend the form again. So I'm not sure if the first, like, here's the code, here's why, or if I should have a tutorial step way of explaining stuff. I'm not that sure about it. That's why I'm still working on the example app to have very clear examples. I don't know what's you guys.
The problem with examples is it's hard not to fall into contrived examples to make a point, right? You're trying to make a point, and then you build a little example for it, and then you try to make another point, and then you end up with some sort of Frankenstein application that's nothing good, right? But I'm not interested in the final application. I'm interested in learning the principles and how it's used, so then I can adapt it to my needs and see how they fit. So I'm not so much interested in an app that, I don't know, it's a CRM or something like that. I'm interested in using an app to learn the principles. Does that make sense?
Totally. Actually, I really, really appreciate these comments. So my application, the gem thing, will be really simple, like it. But so you can create things, and then you can comment on those things. A thing can be something like a gem or like a band or whatever. You know? So you comment on that stuff. And what I'm trying to show in this in a really small code base is I want to cover most of the aspects of a typical Rails application, which is like CRUD interface for the admin side, CRUD interface for the public side with a UI, which is not exactly the same as the CRUD admin forms or whatever. And then I want to show stuff like how you do UI logic, like stuff, how do I trigger autocomplete and all that stuff, like just one simple example. And then stuff like image uploading, file processing, because that's in every application. And then stuff like sending out notifications and stuff. If you finish a certain domain action, and then I want to show how to have a little bit more complex domain logic. Like when I mean, an app is not only create a blog post, done. It's like create a blog post, see if that user is already existing, send out a notification, I don't know, send out another notification to notify the admin, put that post under moderated state. So, I mean, this is not rocket science. This is something that happens in every application. And I want to have at least one a little bit more complex example like this, because I mean, it's still a simple thing. And I think it helps people to abstract this to their own problems. Like, I have the same with the moderation. So, this is how he does it. I don't know. Like, is that something that'll help you, or is it more like, oh no, please don't walk me through the entire comment moderation process?
No, I think it makes sense. I think that's something that I'm definitely interested in. I think one of the things that you were mentioning in your repo that interests me is about being able to decouple the situation, having these views and the forms and the actions and all that, and even make some of those actions off request, and being able to separate that and be it seamless. I don't know if you can talk more about that.
So you want to know how operations can be used? Are you talking about operations, or are you talking about like I don't know, like the entire stack being decoupled from requests?
I think there was something about off requests that it could be put in a queue and things like that. I'm trying to remember where I read that.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. The cool thing about operations, the way I expose the API is, for me it's cool. I don't know if it's cool for you. Is that because an operation is stateless, like it is not stateless. You can use instance variables in the operation as much as you want, and you can use models and write to the database. But from the outer perspective, an operation is stateless because all you can do is operation.run. And so this makes it really, really simple to send, to decouple that from a request. So you can just send operations into a background worker without any work at all. So what I have in my production applications is that I have a top-level operation, for example, to create a profile. But creating a profile requires to send notifications and validate and upload the avatar photo and all that stuff. And some of the parts, so this is all implemented in additional smaller operations. And I can just, so this makes it really, really simple to just send several operations into a background job. It's like because the implementation of my operation doesn't have to change because the operation is already designed as a kind of background-able object. So in my top level operation, I have kind of a chain where so after the validation is finished and I know, okay, this profile data is all right, I have a chain of calling smaller operations, and in that chain I can say push this to the background job and push this to the background job and wait for this one for the result of this one. This is not yet implemented, but this is basically
so you're saying that some of
and
them you can fire and forget, and some of them you're actually going to block and wait for the response?
Well, I don't have the problem that I have to wait for the response yet. But so all of them at the moment are fire and forget. So like upload the photo, blah blah blah, because the operations, the smaller operations that run in the background, they know how to kind of update the application state once they will run successfully. But the thing is, modeling all my stuff in operations makes it no-brainer to push it to a background job. And this is great because we have lots of, like, I'm working on a really image-focused focused website. So we have thousands and hundred thousands of photos being uploaded every day, and there's so much, validation and uploading and cropping and resizing, but only crop this part and only resize this thumb and leave the rest untouched and all that stuff. So there's so much domain logic because our domain is handling or maintaining images, and it's so easy now to work to rearrange the way those operations are run, because I can decide, if I decide today that I want to push a certain part to a background job, it takes me 5 seconds, and I can also test that properly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm interested in so what you said earlier, Adrian, about your service object approach. How do you what's your API like? What I guess you have the same setup, like a service object class, and then you expose one public method like run or call or whatever. So can you talk about this a little bit?
It's nothing very fancy,
Well, an operation is nothing fancy either.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is, let me see if I can pull out one so I don't have to speak out of memory. So, in one project that I work on, we have an object that is a lease, which is basically like a contract. And in that lease, instead of having a create object directly in that active record object, which you get by default, right? We have an object which is core lease and lease creator, that namespace, and then to that initialize method, I just pass the lease and the actual user that is submitting that lease. And with that, I go out and say core lease creator dot new lease and submitter, and then on that I say create, and that will go in and run through all the pre-steps that need to happen. Make sure that you have this, make sure you have that, and I call it a service object because it's basically taking all the things that are needed in doing the service or the action that you're saying, create a lease. And instead of polluting the lease object with all those details,
Yeah.
I just have an object to take care of all that.
Very good. I like that. Yeah, that's cool. But that's exactly. I mean, this is the reason I came up with Trailblazer, because I mean, for me, a service object is common sense. I got misapprehended by Rails for years, but I always knew this is not right to have it in my model. So it should be common sense, but the problem in Rails is that there is no guidance for architecture. So no one tells you where to use a service object. No one tells you how a service object looks like. No one tells you about the API. Everyone says like, hey, use a service object. Everyone. Like, if you read blogs, everyone is like, I use service object. But this doesn't help me at all. Like I mean, I have a lot of years of experience. That's good for me. But let's say I just started Rails, because I have lots of friends. They just started Rails, and they're like, hey, Nick, where am I supposed to use a service object, and where am I supposed to use a form, and where am I supposed to use the model? So what I'm trying with Trailblazer is to bring structure to Rails, like a conventional structure where okay, this step is an operation, and this step requires a form, and this step requires this, and this step requires that. Because I'm a bit tired of like I run into the same problems over and over again. Like you said, like having all this domain logic in the model and stuff. It's classy. I mean, if I start working on a Rails app somewhere, like an existing legacy app, I already know that the models are going to be a mess. So, and this is exactly why I want to work on this Trailblazer stuff, because I think if all like the majority of projects expose the same problems, so there must be something wrong with the framework itself, because the people that use it, they're not stupid. They are all smart people. And I'm also not saying that the core team, they are amazing, they are smart as well, but the problem is there's no concepts in Rails, like there's no structure. It's just like, here's a model, here's a controller, and here's a template, like a template engine. Go for it. So that's so I actually in my book I really want to focus on concepts and thoughts about concepts, like why do I put this in separate classes, and and this is still what I'm thinking about, if I'm gonna walk people through like a tutorial, or if I'm gonna present code to them right away, because it's a bit hard to to introduce a new concept like an operation or like a form object. It's hard to introduce that without any like you need to, first of all, you need to establish a problem, like a problem that everyone understands. Like, here's my model and here's a lot of validations, and this doesn't work anymore because I use my validations in two different contexts, and so I have to put in if and else to activate those validations or to disable the validations for the other context. And so I have to establish this problem, and then you can tell like, hey, and this is how we do it in Trailblazer or in Lotus or whatever. And this is the hard part of the book, is to find the balance between how do I establish a problem, or how do I install the problem in the people's minds without having too much code, and how do I present the solution without having too much code. Because I had, in a lot of talks, I made really simple examples, and I will do that forever and a day. But often people complain. They're like, "Hey, this was too simple. Like, I mean, that's stupid to have just one validation in a model, and then you put this one validation into a form. That's too simple. Like, I mean, what's the point about your stuff?" And you're like, "Okay, but if you make it too complex, then people will be like, I don't understand anything this guy is talking about." So that's my problem at the moment, is to find the balance between that. I don't even know how I came to this topic at the moment, but doesn't matter.
Well, Nick, I really appreciate your time. I'm sorry, but I gotta take off. But I'm looking forward for more stuff into this. I'll keep an eye on Gen Jam for the moment being, and on the book. Thanks so much for the time, man.
Hey, thanks for being here, man, and send me your Twitter handle, all of you guys, so we can stay in touch, because I really appreciate your feedback and your time that you were spending. I actually have to take off as well because I need to go to work.
Have fun, man. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you very much, guys. Any other last questions for Nick?
Thanks a lot. I enjoyed it. It's great.
Cool. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. Thanks for your time, Nick.
De nada, Cesar, de nada. I'll see you in Guadalajara.
I will wait for you.
Cool, thanks, man.
All right, thank you very much. Take care, everyone.
Bye.